So more than 250,000 new people hearing my music. I always get a massive influx of listeners after that. I've learned this for the past 20 years. Those were the times that I got hundreds of thousands of new listeners. Hey, it's Andrew Huang. A few years ago, I decided to get more serious about my music streaming performance. Up until that point, I had just kind of put stuff out whenever and pointed to it a few times on social media and here on YouTube, and that was it. So I thought about and I researched things that I could do to grow my listenership, and I ended up getting hundreds of thousands of new listeners. So I'm gonna break down everything that I did, then I'm gonna show you how each thing worked and why almost none of it was worth it. I wanna say a couple things before we start. I was focused on Spotify performance because, let's face it, it's where the industry looks. It's the most popular platform. Like, I have 10 times as many Spotify listeners as I do the second place platform, which is Apple. And second, I want to say, if you just make music to enjoy it and you're not trying to build an audience, that's great. I think that's a wonderful and valid approach to making music. This video is for people who want to share their music with the world, which I also believe to be a wonderful and valid approach to making music. So here are all the promotional strategies that I tried, or at least looked into and then decided were not for me. Number one is promoting much more than you think you should on social media. I used to post just a couple times about each new release, and I started getting up to more like 10 posts maybe for a release, which honestly is probably still not enough, but I'm just also making so much music. I'm dropping products, I'm releasing these videos. I have so many things to promote that I don't have as much bandwidth for promoting every individual music release. The important thing here though is not promoting in like a spammy way. You obviously will have your announcement posts, you'll be putting up your album art, but finding creative angles that are not just asking people to listen to your music, you know, doing jokes and skits, and music production breakdowns or quick tips. This is hands down the hardest thing I've ever made. Things where the audience is getting something out of the content itself, as well as being made aware of the fact that you have new music out that they can go check out. It would be lovely if we could all just say, hey, I've got new music out, and that was exciting enough, but you know, we're on these social media feeds competing with literally what the algorithm thinks is going to be the most interesting thing to each person at any given time. So yeah, you gotta spice it up. Number two is asking for pre-saves. So if you're not aware, there's this feature on Spotify where someone can pre-save unreleased music, meaning that as soon as it is released, it's automatically added to their library. People say that this could add some kind of algorithmic boost if Spotify is seeing the signal that something is being pre-saved a lot, and or if something is pre-saved a lot, more people will listen to it when it comes out, so it might help in that way. I feel like you can probably already tell I don't care about this tip, and in the results section of the video, you'll see why. Number three is collaborating with more artists, and this is something that I was starting to do more of anyway, but it is one of the biggest tips that people will tell you about growing an audience, because of course, anytime you do a joint release, it's an opportunity for your audience to see the other artist's work and for the other artist's audience to see your work. Number four is contests. For reasons that are probably obvious, platforms will not allow you to use streaming a song as an entry method for a draw, and there are a lot of rules and regulations around raffle type things anyway. So what I did, which based on my research should not have any legal issues, is I would just host these giveaways of some music gear that was used on some of the music that I made. And to enter, you just needed to fill out a Google form and tell me what your favorite song on a record was and why. So total honor system really, but this one turned out interesting, and I'll talk about why in the next section. Number five is I use Spotify's pitching feature. So in the Spotify for Artists backend, if you have a release that's more than a week away and it's uploaded to their system already, you can submit this form where you tag a few things, write a short description, and this helps their curators to see if there might be a good fit for a playlist that they want to include that track on. Number 6 is releasing music more often. So I started doing a lot more singles than I used to do. And the reason that this is effective is because every time you have a new release, that's another time that you show up in your followers' release radar. It's another opportunity to pitch because you can only pitch once per release. So if an album has 10 songs, you can only pitch one of them. If you release all 10 as singles, that's 10 times that you can pitch. Now, if you're much more of an albums artist than a singles artist, this still could work for you because, you know, it's very tried and tested to release some singles in the run up to an album. Probably not every single track off the album, but you could do a few. And this kind of ties into the 7th strategy, which is the waterfall technique. You see a lot of artists do this now. They will release a single and then a little while later, they'll release a second single, but the second single has the first single as its second track. And then they might do this like 4 or 5 times. So eventually you've got quite a lot of new things in your discography and each one just has one additional track. So this way you are concentrating your promotional efforts on one song at a time, but once people go to the platform to stream, you're getting that benefit of the ones who stick around to listen to more. And you also get the added benefit of more opportunities to pitch, more opportunities to show up in release radar. The last 3 strategies are things that I learned about and chose not to do. So number 8 is marquees, ads, and other paid services. When I looked into the economics of this, it was completely wild. Like, you'd spend so much more money on advertising your music than you could ever make back by the streams that would bring in. And I'm not saying I'm totally against this or anything, by the way. You know, I could see a world where, you know, a piece of music is important enough to me that I really do want it to reach more people and I don't really care if I'm making money off it, but it does. The part of it that rubs me the wrong way is giving Spotify money to like put up a banner of my music on a user's page when, you know, I'm not at all gonna be making back that money from the Spotify royalty. Number 9 is consistency of genre or style. You know, you don't have to make every release follow the exact same formula, but definitely when you have a project that is more branded and people, you know, have their expectations met or exceeded, that is gonna work better for you than when every new release is completely all over the place and different, like completely different mood, completely different approach. You just confuse listeners that way. I've learned this for the past 20 years and have shot myself in the foot with almost every release because there is no consistency, but I'd rather just make what I want to make. It makes no sense to drop this math, jazz, hyperpop thing, follow it up with a classical piano piece, and then some prog rock, and then a joke song about slide whistles. I just wanna slide with you. This is an actual run of singles I had in 2023. If you're an Andrew Huang listener and you're sticking with me through this, thank you so much. And this kind of bleeds into the final strategy, number 10, which I also could not bring myself to do, which was changing my music to be more playlistable. No shade to the people who do this, it can work. You wanna make music that's really trendy, put hooks right in the first 10 seconds so that listeners and playlist editors will, you know, get the vibe right away. I've heard of artists who make music tailored to specific playlists, like this one individual playlist that they know has 1 million followers or whatever, and they aim for that. It can work. I don't feel like it. So how did all these strategies work out? Well, before starting to do this kind of promotion, I was at like 80 to 100,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, and I had been for a few years. And after I started doing this, the peak was 350,000 monthly listeners. Hey, it's Angel from the future. I just realized I should probably explain how I got to that 80 to 100,000 listeners to begin with. But honestly, it's a bit of a mystery to me because, like I mentioned earlier, my only strategy before was just mentioning new releases a couple times on social media and in a YouTube video. And of course, I do have a pretty strong following on these platforms. But what's mysterious to me is that increasing the amount of posts there hasn't really made a big difference. So I don't know if I just already had maxed out the effectiveness of it, or maybe, you know, the times have changed and earlier people were more engaged, or, you know, maybe my earlier music was more algorithmically friendly on Spotify or something, and it would just get like in more people's feeds or whatever. Wish I could clarify that more for you, but that is what that was. So more than 250,000 new people hearing my music. That's great in some ways. And then in other ways, well, just keep listening. So strategy number 1 was promoting more on social media. This had a small impact, but not huge. Like with each post I made, I could look at how many people clicked on the link, and at most I think I might get a few hundred. And it's not nothing, but it's not a lot compared to how many streams the song was getting anyway being on Spotify, or compared to how many people saw the post. Like I've had a post reach 250,000 views, and the amount of people who clicked on the link was like 500. And that ratio can be all over the place. I'm picking a pretty extreme example, but yeah, you do have to think about what is the effort you're putting into different types of social media posts and what you could get out of them. Number 2 is pre-saves. It's hard to tell because we don't get data on what listens were generated from pre-saves, but based on releases where I wasn't doing any of these strategies yet, and I had just started doing pre-saves, and comparing that to when I wasn't doing any strategies at all, it didn't seem to move the needle in any significant way for me. Number 3 is collaborating. This does help sometimes. It's hard to say because it's also so much about the music and about the collaborator. Like I will sometimes collab with people who have much smaller audiences than me. So there you're not necessarily gonna see a lot of new people coming your way. On the flip side of that, I do 1st of October, my yearly album in a day project with Rob Scallon, and I always get a massive influx of listeners after that, which part of it for sure is the fact that there's a lot of Rob people who don't care about me who are listening to some stuff that Rob is on. But it's also hard to say like how much of it is just the excitement around that project, because Rob and I have both seen that there's this extra level of fandom around this project that we do. So is it the collab nature of it that brings in that many more people, or is it just what that project means to people, what it sounds like, what the concept is? But overall, yeah, collaborating in general is a positive way to grow your audience. Number 4 was contests. Here's a graph of a release, and you can see a little bump where I ran a contest. And this is how I found it usually goes. You will get a significant but short-term boost for the duration that you're running the contest. It's not the kind of thing that's gonna launch your song into the next stratosphere. Are there multiple stratospheres? But it probably will encourage a few new people to go check it out, or a few people who've already listened to listen again. Now, this doesn't really have to do with audience growth, but what I didn't realize until doing one of these contests is that there is a big chunk of listener feedback that we don't often get. So I was doing these draws where to enter, you just needed to tell me what your favorite song was on an album and why. And I was just trying to think of like, what's a thing that's, it's honor system, but we are gonna kind of be able to tell if you actually listen to the music or not. But what it also was an opportunity for people to let me know how my music was affecting them, how they connected with it emotionally, what they appreciated about the writing or production. Like if you get comments online, or if you play a show to an audience, the feedback you get can be great, but it's also pretty surface level. And so here, like just having these hundreds of listeners tell me details about what they appreciated about my work, or ways that it was getting them through the day, or that they were resonating with it emotionally, that was just really meaningful. And honestly, I mean, how do you compare that connection with just like making a streaming number go higher? So anyway, yeah, a contest can be a small help for streaming numbers, and if you do it the way that I did it, an unexpected gift for your artistic self, some warmth, some encouragement from your audience. And actually, as a side note, I've started doing this when I check out my friends' music. I try to give them really specific and positive feedback. Like it's so easy to just go, oh, this was dope. But you know, telling someone what you appreciate about their music, about specific songs or moments in songs, what you appreciate about them as an artist, most artists need to hear more of that. Maybe there is the very occasional artist who does not need any more of that. But like, why not, you know? Why not inject more positivity into the world? It's literally free. There's some way to turn this into a perpetual motion machine, I feel like. Anyway, major tangent. Number 5, pitching to playlists. This was, on the one hand, the least and most effective thing that I did out of all of the strategies. Least because there are such slim chances of you getting selected for a playlist, and most of the time you just don't hear anything. And so, you know, the results are 0. But the times that I did get onto a popular playlist, those were the times that I got hundreds of thousands of new listeners. A massive boost that, you know, depending on the playlist, would last for sometimes a few months. Now here's where it's bittersweet though. A playlist listener very rarely becomes a fan. They are not suddenly going to check out your whole discography. They are probably not even bothering to find out who you are, because a lot of playlists just are on in the background. So you get this big boost of monthly listeners, but a lot of them are just listening to that one track. You do get increased streaming royalties because you have this one track that's really popping off, but it's not a deep or meaningful promotion strategy. It kind of just is what it is. You got on a playlist, you got these tons of extra streams, these tons of extra listeners for a period of time, and then it's gone. Now, it's not insignificant, and I don't want this section of the video to be like me complaining about how, I got all these new listeners and it was bad. But it just happens completely at random. It's not up to you whether you're on a playlist or which playlist. If it's a popular playlist, you get a lot of plays on that one track. And then depending on listener habits or the algorithm or whatever, that can lead to a slight boost in your profile. Here's an analysis of my streams from the period where my song Beef was added to the Jazz Funk playlist. If you look at the period of time where my total streams were above average and compare that to its quote unquote normal levels before and after, you can see that I got about an additional 300,000 streams on my other material during the most impactful time for Beef on that playlist. So that's not bad. It's hard to say how much of that is people who found Beef on that playlist and then went to check my stuff out themselves, or if I was just getting a little more algorithmic push because some stuff of mine was being played more, so Spotify would recommend other stuff of mine more. There's no way to know for sure. Ultimately, it's not like this was a career boosting moment. It happened, it was good, and then when it was over, I returned to that baseline 80 to 100,000 monthly listeners. So I think echoing what it's like to have a social post do extremely well and lead to just a tiny amount of people actually going to check out the music. Here, you have a song perform extremely well, but only a tiny amount of those people ever listen to anything else you do. And getting playlisted, this is just luck of the draw. Like, you can't control anything about it besides filling out that little form. You don't know who's listening to it. You don't even know what all the playlists are out there that you could get added to. So much of the time, you just won't get anything out of it at all. Strategy number 6, releasing more often. Also kind of a hard one to tell how effective it was. I mean, definitely I would see some little bumps in the graph when new music came out because you are getting on release radar more. In my case, releasing more didn't contribute to more playlisting because all the stuff that I've had that has been playlisted was going to be released anyway, was gonna be released in that format. It's not like I broke out extra singles for that. So releasing more often is good. It's certainly better than releasing less often. It's just not the kind of thing that's going to give you some major boost unless you put something out that you wouldn't have otherwise and it becomes a hit or it gets playlisted. Number 7, the waterfall. I didn't fully try this where I had multiple releases that kept adding songs to them, but I did release a number of singles that were later collected onto an album, and that led to 1 to 2 weeks of those tracks being streamed anywhere between 2 to 10 times as much as they had been before dropping back down to their baseline. So a temporary increase, but one that is repeatable to a degree if adding songs to a release and extending it over a period of time is something you're interested in doing. As I mentioned before, I didn't actually do strategies 8, 9, and 10, so I can't speak to how effective they were. So let's jump to my takeaways. Number 1 is that platforms don't like you to move people to other platforms. Like, Instagram does not want someone to stop scrolling Instagram. If you post something that's really good promotion, and so they get off Instagram and they go stream your music, that's bad for Instagram. They don't want that. Supposedly there's no, I've heard people talk about how writing link in bio in your caption means that your post will get demoted in the algorithm or whatever. I doubt that's true directly, but I'm sure Instagram is looking at signals like, oh, this post led to less time on our app versus these other posts that led to more time on our app. Number 2, I think this is gonna be a tricky one. It's easier to promote music that is more popular. Like songs that more people like more need less promotion per stream. There's a perfect example of this on the 1st of October album we just dropped. As of right now, all of the songs have received equal promotion. We made 2 videos that each are about the whole album. We've made some posts that are all just about the album. No song has been favored here, but so many of the comments are talking about this one song, Who Is It For, as the standout, as their favorite, and the streams reflect that. It's gotten a lot more streams than all the other songs on the album, but what if the other 9 songs on the album had been better? We would have done the exact same amount of promotion, but there would just be more people listening, more streams would be happening. And so I guess the thing that I'm bringing it back to is that the music that is going to be streamed the most is the most streamable music. Third takeaway is streaming platforms are even more chaotic than social media. Like, it's hard to build a following on social media. It is way harder to try and get an audience to grow on these streaming platforms. They're just not made for it. Like, Spotify has a follow button that nobody cares about or talks about. And on top of that, as passive as social media is, you know, just sitting there and scrolling, music streaming is even more passive because there's just such a huge number of people who just put it on and aren't paying attention to it. It's on in the background. They aren't even handpicking what they listen to. They just let it go. So that's where I struggle with this, and I know a lot of other artists struggle too, is that music promotion is so much work and the return that you get for it does not feel particularly meaningful. As discouraging as it was, though, to find out that so many of these strategies didn't really make a significant difference, I'm glad I tried them. I learned a lot, and I wanted to share that with you if you're trying to make stuff happen with your music. I think going forward, I'm going with the low lift stuff, you know. I'll keep filling out that little pitch form for music that's not like completely experimental and wild. I'll do some waterfalling occasionally. I'll do some social posts, but basically I'm gonna keep making what I wanna make and recognize that I can help it a little bit. But if anything is wildly successful, it's just luck. It's either luck that I happen to make something that connects with a lot more people, or it's luck that I happen to make something that connects to one person who's in charge of a playlist.